Good morning, everybody. Representative Tiffany is my very special guest today, Wednesday, September 23, 2020. I'm Ben Dryden, and you are watching DrydenWire Live. Yesterday, Barron County Sheriff Chris Fitzgerald was on for our weekly, Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy show. In case you missed it, a recording of that is on our Facebook page, our website, DrydenWire.com, and of course our YouTube channel. This Friday, Kim Butler will be my guest as we continue our Meet the Candidates series. Kim is running against Gabe Magnifici in Wisconsin's 28th Assembly District. Gabe was just on last Friday. But today, I am excited to welcome back for his monthly chat, which has been delayed, I think, like twice now. 7th Congressional District Representative, Congressman Tom Tiffany. Tom, good morning. How are you, sir?
Ben Dryden, it's good to be here. Hope things are well. I am out in Washington, D.C. today. It's great to join you via that wonderful technology known as Skype.
What a disaster. So it's like an ongoing thing that every time that you're on, we have some kind of an issue, technical issue for whatever reason. I think the last time that you were on, we had great internet connection and you were in a hotel, and then the power goes out like 20 minutes into it. And then right before our show this morning, we had some issues, so we're a few minutes late going live because we're looking for a charger, and it just, man, I'm really just hoping.
Let's not talk about that, Ben. Let's talk about the news of the world.
Actually, you know what? I like that idea. So, by the way, real quick, I saw we put up this morning, and I saw on your, or it was a TV ad that you had just put out, and I saw your mother again, and boy, I just love seeing her on your ads.
She's a great American. She just had her birthday last week.
Oh, no kidding.
I don't think she minds me saying this. Number 89 on September 17th, and yeah. And we had a blast doing the television ad. It really hit home for the. She's a home canner and loves canning sauerkraut, pickles, and beets, and everything else. And had a chance to help her a little bit this summer with some of that. And so we shot an ad. It was kind of fun.
I liked it, and it looked like it was shot probably at your house.
Yeah. It was actually at Mom's place. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah. All right, so we're already having some issues here. We're having some major lag here. That may be on my end. What in the world is going on? Holy cow. Tom, I swear, one of these days we'll figure this out.
It does bring up a point, though, that one of the priorities I have out here, Ben, is broadband connectivity for rural and northern Wisconsin. We had a really good rural broadband program in the state of Wisconsin that I voted for in the state legislature when I was in the state Senate. We got it up to $40 million with the last budget. But there's a similar program at the federal level, and we need to start getting more of those dollars to northern Wisconsin because people need that connectivity, and especially with people looking at getting out of the cities, coming to rural Wisconsin, which we're seeing some of that. The real estate market's really hot in northern Wisconsin and northern and western Wisconsin, and that broadband connectivity is really important.
I agree. So I want to get to this just in case a lot of times we have just an issue and all of a sudden, you're just not there anymore. And it looks like this time it's on my end, which is normal, but I want to get right to some things. I had written down 4 things I want to discuss with you. One was on September 4th, you and another introduced a bill to restore the Gray Wolf Authority to states. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so this is an issue, as you know, Ben, that has been talked about for a long time. What has it been, 6, 7, 8 years ago, that a federal judge out here in Washington, D.C. went and took away the ability of states to be able to manage their wolf population. Ever since then, we've been trying to get that reversed, try to do it at the state level, calling attention to the issue, trying to move Congress to get it done. Well, it has not gotten done. And so it's one of the first issues that I tackled out here since being elected in the special election in May. And we introduced a bill to allow delisting for Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Wyoming to allow the states to manage the wolf population. The science is very clear. There's 26 wildlife scientists that 6 or 7 years ago signed a letter to Congress saying that it's time to delist the wolf. It is no longer endangered. And when a species is no longer endangered, it should be taken off the endangered species list. Allow the state to manage it. And that's what I truly believe is the best route to go.
In your press release that you had sent out about that, which I believe you put that on our website, said that it's time to end the era of urban judges and paper pushers 1,000 miles away in Washington, D.C., micromanaging Wisconsin wildlife policies. Wolf attacks on pets and livestock are becoming commonplace, and the soaring wolf population is beginning to do long-term damage to the hunting industry. Enough is enough. Now, I'm not a hunter, and I'm sure there's wolves around here, but I just don't know much about it. What does that mean when you say it's doing long-term damage to the hunting industry?
Well, let me give you a real quick example.
Sure.
Park Falls, as they designate themselves as the ruffed grouse capital of the world, and grouse hunting is terrific in Price County and across northern Wisconsin. What you're seeing is some hunters who used to come to northern Wisconsin to grouse hunt, they're no longer doing that because they're scared for their dogs' safety. So they can't go out in the woods and be able to have their dogs out there. I mean, I just heard from a retired DNR official up in a little bit further north of you who said that they're very concerned about letting their dogs out just to take care of their business, to be within 50 feet of the house. There are so many wolves. It's been so disruptive, and so it's harming hunting. It's harming agriculture, especially for beef and dairy farmers, as well as people that just want to recreate. They can no longer let their dogs out, and it's just really become a serious problem. There's no reason not to delist the wolf. Those 25 scientists that signed that letter a number of years ago, they're right. That it's time to delist the wolf because they are restored. They are no longer endangered.
And where is this? This was on September 4th. You'd sent that out. Where is the bill right now? Where in the process?
Yeah, we've submitted it to be able to have a hearing on it. I suspect with Speaker Pelosi being in charge of the House of Representatives that she's going to slow walk this, not move it very quickly, which is unfortunate. And but the sooner that we can get a hearing on it, the better. We don't at this point. I suspect that it will not. I hope it will, but I suspect it will not before the election. But I sure hope after the election, we're going to do a renewed push. If I'm fortunate enough to be reelected, we're going to go back at it, and we're going to try to get the wolf delisted here in the Great Lakes states. It's time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people agree with you on that. And I really didn't know a whole lot about this. I think when your predecessor there, Sean Duffy, we had ran some press releases, and I didn't know that was really a thing. I guess I'd been gone from North Wisconsin for like 20 years, so I didn't know that was it was a hot topic. And it seems like there's a lot of support for that.
Yeah, there is. And it really is a bipartisan issue when you get to the rural areas of the Great Lakes states, as well as throughout the country where wolves affect them. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or Democrat. People understand that the wolf has recovered, and it's time to delist them.
So on September 17th, so I think that'd be last Thursday, I think, you had another bill, and it was another press release.
That was my mom's birthday.
So did you plan it this way to announce that Tiffany introduces bill to scrap one China policy, resume normal ties with Taiwan? So I read through this twice, and there's still a lot of questions that I have. But what is the summary of this? What is a one China policy?
Back in the late 70s, then President Carter, he adopted a one China policy, which basically said that Taiwan would not be recognized. I believe the country of Taiwan would not be recognized by the United States of America. And Congress, Republicans and Democrats, were so upset with what President Carter did that they set up an alternate route for us to be able to have diplomatic relations. And a couple years ago, I had a chance to go to Taiwan and visit that country. In their outlook and in their government, they're very similar to us. They have democratic processes, and it's really a beautiful island nation. China, as we know, is communist run. The Chinese people are wonderful people, but they have a terrible government on the mainland of China. And they have been really harassing the Taiwanese. They are insisting that Taiwan's government not be recognized. And I believe their government should be recognized. I believe it's two separate countries. And China has been very harsh to countries that try to recognize Taiwan. They try to stifle trade. They do a variety of things like that. And we all know what China is doing these days. They are threatening their neighbors, whether it's the Indian government, the Taiwanese. Hong Kong is losing their freedoms that those people have had for decades when the English government was managing Hong Kong. They steal intellectual property. We're hearing more and more about that. Very concerned about what's happening at our universities that have Chinese students, not all of them, but some Chinese students who function as spies for the communist government and steal our intellectual property. China is just not a good actor. And I think it's time that we recognize that we officially recognize the Taiwanese government.
Why do you think that nobody else has, in the 40 years, said, I think it's time that we do? Or maybe they have and they haven't been successful. You've been in office for 100 and some days. That's a big bill, man, to introduce. What was it about this that made you go, this is something we just got to get done, and we got to get it done now?
Yeah, it is a significant change, but we've also seen significant changes in the last few years in the leadership of President Xi in mainland China. He is a communist theocrat. He wants to have ultimate control over people. I mean, give you another example. Look at the ethnic minorities, the Uyghurs in Western China. It is being shown that they are in virtual concentration camps at this point. It's a terrible way in which the communist Chinese are managing their government that represents those people. And President Xi, who ascended to power just a few years ago, has really taken his communist ideology to the next step, whereas previous leaders to him were not doing that so much in China. So it's become a much more important issue. And I mentioned earlier that 2 years ago I had a chance to visit Taiwan, and it was really interesting talking to government officials in Taiwan about how fearful they were of the Chinese government under President Xi. And so that's been my motivation, and part of that is because of the change in how the communist Chinese government is treating their neighbors, especially over the last couple years. I think it's just that it's timely is why we have introduced this bill.
And I've seen President Trump actually take some steps towards this as well.
Yes, there was recently, I believe, one of our State Department officials, highest ranking State Department officials, that just visited Taiwan here in the last week. And so we're making it very clear to the Communist Chinese government, stop being a bully, stop trying to push people around that just seek freedom like the people of Taiwan.
Yeah, that's our job, by the way. So you probably had seen, I think it was just yesterday, that here in Wisconsin, Governor Tony Evers issued the mask mandate. Essentially, it's extending it, but it's another mask mandate. I think it goes to November 21st. Did you see that, and what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I saw the news story. I haven't had a chance to study it closely. I know he implemented a mask mandate almost 60 days ago. Mm-hmm. His executive authority lasts for 60 days, so that should be that should expire, I believe, on September 28th, mm-hmm. on Monday. There is a court challenge to Governor Evers' mask mandate, and plus I think you'll see another one with this extension. I think Governor Evers really needs to negotiate with the legislature rather than dictating. People don't like it when there's this heavy-handed efforts that come from Madison rather than sitting down and talking to the people's representatives. Governor Evers has had a terrible month here in the last month, where even you're seeing political publications like Politico saying that Governor Evers has become a drag for presidential candidate Joe Biden after the riots in Kenosha. Governor Evers has much bigger issues he needs to deal with. They're going to have a challenging budget, the next budget. Kenosha needs to be rebuilt. State Street on Madison was almost destroyed in the riots. I think he needs to focus on the bigger issues that are affecting Wisconsinites, like keeping the peace in our cities.
How do you think this ends?
I don't know. I'm guessing that they'll win the court challenge because what Governor Evers is doing is illegal. Doing this extension beyond 60 days. He had I believe he does have 60 days,
Yeah.
but certainly beyond 60 days, he does not have that authority. It's very clearly stated in the law, and Governor Evers should be following the law rather than just dictating to the people of the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's obviously a very hot topic here in the last 24 hours. But I think I think you were just here in our area maybe it was a couple weeks ago. I think it was Superior. Were you not? I think I saw something. It was on your Facebook page. What was it? You were up in Superior for something.
Yeah, so it was about a week ago, 10 days ago, that I went up to Superior to see a presentation by the EPA, and they presented a $5 million grant to UW Superior to study ballast water discharges. For your viewers, listeners out there that are familiar with that ballast water issue, it's great concern that that invasive species come in via ballast water on those lakers that travel between the various lakes of the Great Lakes, as well as other boats and ships that travel the St. Lawrence Seaway and then end up all the way in Superior. So under the Trump administration, the EPA is saying, hey, we want to study this so we've got good information to be able to make any necessary changes in policy. And I went to that because I think that's a great idea. There's a lot of unknowns yet in regards to ballast water discharges and what would be the best practices to deal with it. Hopefully with this grant to UW Superior, they're going to find some ways to be able to advise us as policymakers, hey, here's a good approach that can be taken to make sure we protect the Great Lakes, because we all want to make sure we protect the Great Lakes, especially Lake Superior, the greatest freshwater body in the world, inland freshwater body in the world. And by the way, Ben, we had a chance to tour the Port of Superior with Congressman Stauber, who represents Minnesota, the Minnesota side. And by the way, I always chide him. When we talk about the Twin Ports, it's Superior and Duluth, not Duluth and Superior. But anyhow, we had a chance to tour the port, and there's a lot of good work that's going on by the EPA to clean up some of the impaired sites that are up there, old industrial sites that need to be cleaned up. And boy, I got to give President Trump a lot of credit and his leadership at EPA, like Kurt Thiede, who represents Region 5. And they've dedicated a lot of resources to cleaning up the Twin Ports with some of those impaired areas. And it was really quite impressive, the work that's being done out there.
Oh, my goodness. Do you get a chance now that, like right now, you said you're in D.C., do you get a chance to go around the 7th Congressional District as much as you would like?
So last week, this week, and next week, spending most of my time in D.C. because we're voting on various pieces of legislation. So not able to spend quite as much time other than the weekends, because I do come home every weekend. But prior to that, through the month of August, I was almost totally touring the district every week, and we'll continue to do that after we get past next week when we're in session here out in Congress. But yeah, I spend as much time as possible out in the district, no different than when I was in the state Senate.
Yeah. Yeah, you put a lot of miles on, if I recall. It's like 50,000 miles a year, or 30 or 50,000 miles a year in your car when you were...
Yeah, I was doing 50,000 miles a year. There's no better way to find out what people are thinking and getting people's input than getting out and meeting with people. Sure. I take that very seriously, and I just think it's a really important thing to do.
Well, and there is obviously other things going on in D.C., obviously with the SCOTUS nomination. I have a couple questions on that, but first, what is your take on the whole situation in terms of appointing someone? Should they appoint someone this year?
So condolences to the Ruth Bader Ginsburg family. I think that's the thing that gets lost in all of this is it's just politics all the time. I mean, this is a human. This is a person who blazed a trail that she thought was the best course for the United States, had this position of incredible authority. But we should remember that that's a human, and just send condolences to her family with her passing.
Yeah.
And but I think as we go forward, it's very clear in the Constitution that the president nominates the puts forth the nominee for the Supreme Court, and the United States Senate does review. If there's a majority of the votes that say that that person should be approved, then they're approved. And I think that process should be followed. It's very simple, and it's very straightforward in the law and in the Constitution of our country.
There seems to be two schools of thought, one being to try to have the person nominated and confirmed before the election, and then the other school of thought is to have it after the election. Which one do you think they should do?
Oh, I just go back to the president. It's his duty under the Constitution to put the nominee forward. The U.S. Senate decides whether there's a majority of their members are going to approve that nominee. I think it's as simple as that. It's been done in very short periods of time, like 30 days, and other times it's taken a few months. And I think they should just go through the process as laid out. And I do think it is important to get someone seated soon, because there are a number of significant court cases that have made their way up to the Supreme Court, and it's very important to have that 9-member court to be able to make those decisions. And so I think they should do it as promptly as possible to be able to fill that vacancy.
What else is going on in D.C. or the 7th Congressional District?
So, obviously out here voting on a few pieces of legislation. Last night, there was a bill that came before us, a continuing resolution. One of the things that I'm really disappointed, Ben, with how Congress works right now is they just do these continuing resolutions that keeps the government going. It spends some more money. This one was $1 trillion. We got the bill 31 minutes before we were supposed to vote on it. So just on that basis alone, I voted against it, because I believe the budget process should work like it does in the state of Wisconsin that I participated in the last 3 budgets, being on the Finance Committee. It's really pretty broken, the process out here. And it's one of the things that I'm hoping will change after this next election, is that we get a budget process that works, that you go through regular process where you have committee hearings, you have a full vetting of the bill, the committee votes on it, sends it to the entire House of Representatives, then they all vote on it. We're not doing that at this point. It's Speaker Nancy Pelosi deciding what's going to be in the continuing resolution, and then it gets voted on 31 minutes after we get to see it. That's not a good process, and it's part of the reason why why I believe our country's so far in debt. And one of the things that I'm really greatly concerned about is the additional indebtedness that's coming along. One other thing that I would mention is that I think we've talked about this in the past. One of the primary things that we should be getting done as Congress is liability reforms for businesses, schools, hospitals, and others. With this great uncertainty with COVID-19, you have all these entities that they're very fearful that they'll be sued for making decisions that they're making in real time. So think about the number of changes that we've seen in policy in regards to COVID-19, or just, the medical profession comes back to us, like the Centers for Disease Control, and they say, well, what we told you a few months ago, that's changed now. How would you like to be a school administrator and make decisions that are affecting students and their staff's lives, and you don't know for sure what the best science is? I believe there should be liability protections for the schools, hospitals, and for private businesses that are just making the best decisions that they can. That's being held up by Speaker Pelosi at this point. She's not allowing a vote to go forward in regards to those liability protections. I think that's the first and most important thing that we should be dealing with out here in Washington, D.C.
Why, excuse me, why is that, in your belief, being not going forward? Why do you believe that she is preventing that to happen? Or from happening?
I'm not sure the reason why.
Okay.
All I know is that She's saying, I will get you I will consider liability protections if you do the bailout for the states. So you got the states like Illinois, California, New York, and others that have serious budget deficits. And she's saying we got to pump money into them to save those states. Their problems, their fiscal problems, predate COVID-19. I don't believe the people of Wisconsin should have to bail out Illinois, California, and New York, who have mismanaged their budgets. So she's trying to get the trade-off of trying to bail out those states. I don't believe that we should be doing that. I think there should be a clean bill that allows those liability protections.
Well, we are up against the clock because we had a little bit late or a delayed start. We just hit a little after 10, and I told you, Press Secretary, we'll be finished by 10. Because I know you have a lot of other things to get to. You said you're going to be in D.C. for a while. Anything, you have some bills to look into. Anything else happening over the next few weeks?
So it's just this week and next week that I'll be in D.C.
Okay.
As I said, I always come home weekends. I'm working weekends. And but then I'll be home actively campaigning as well as dealing with constituent issues. I would emphasize to people our in-district office is fully up and running. Phone number 715-298-9344. Contact my office anytime. My constituent or my district staff, they're ready to deal with any concerns you have. Veterans issues, Social Security issues, or any other issues, don't hesitate to contact us. And probably the one other bill that I'm looking at co-sponsoring, because it's being led by another member of the House, is there is a healthcare reform bill that makes sure that we deal with people that people get coverage for pre-existing conditions, that we allow greater freedom and flexibility for people to be able to deal with their healthcare concerns. That's another bill that I'm looking at promoting here as we get to the end of the session, and then also, if fortunate enough to be reelected, to really focus on that in the next session of Congress.
Well, when you come back on next month for our monthly chat, give us an update on that one. I wrote down a whole bunch of notes, so man, we're going to have a whole bunch to talk about next time. And by the way, I did order a brand new computer last week, and it should be here pretty soon. So we're going to be flying. It's going to be amazing starting next time with all of our technical stuff.
No, that's perfect. And we worked out our bugs on the end, and I think we're going to be ready to go here in the future.
Yep. You better get reelected with all this work that we're doing.
It's always great to join you. And I'd emphasize to people, we got election time coming up. If you're out there, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, putting those signs up and stuff like that, don't steal people's signs. That's just not a polite thing to do. And plus, you're probably trespassing and you are stealing people's property. Don't do that. But participate in the election. We have a very good absentee ballot system in Wisconsin. If you don't feel safe going into the polls November 3rd, or if you or if you just can't be there November 3rd, be sure to get your absentee ballot. Be sure to vote on November 3rd and conduct the most important civic activity that you can. That's voting.
Tom, it's always a pleasure.
Good to be here, Ben.
Thanks. We'll talk to you in a few weeks. Special thank you to my guest today, Representative Tom Tiffany, for jumping on for a chat. And thank you all, of course, for watching. I'm Ben Dryden, and I will see you right back here this Friday when I'll be chatting with 28th District candidate Kim Butler. So until then, stay safe, keep your social distance, and as always, have a blessed day.